Hi, very good afternoon to all my listeners and my speaker colleagues. I'm Hazel D'Souza. I have done my BTech in electronics. I have experience of 5 years in home tutoring. I'm a visiting faculty for Don Bosco College and I'm a design engineer. So, my topic for today is strikers for the end. That is, what is the last minute you need to do before your exams, and in such a short span, you have the boards coming up. Okay, so let's just begin with this. So, my topics will be science and maths. Now, in science, you have three categories: physics, chemistry, and bio. I have given you pointers on this slide to what you need to do. Okay, I'll be stressing on these. Let's start with physics. The first one is formulae. Formulas are very important, especially when it comes to numericals. Without formulas, they almost carry 1 to 2 marks. So you need to be very sure on what formulas you write because you're going to substitute in that. Second is your SI units. In the end, you always have to give a denotion for whatever your answer is. Whatever the units, mostly the units preferred is in SI form. You have to give them in the last of the answer. Numerical solving method, that is how you will be solving your numericals. I would suggest you start with what's given, what you have to find, and what is your solution. Also, a very important thing in this comes is your conversion. Okay, I will be discussing that later. Then you have definitions. When it comes to your theory answers in physics, you have to be very word to word with your definitions, very abrupt in what you write and the way you define. Okay, you cannot put it across in whatever you feel because your definitions again carry 1 to 2 marks. Second, I will come to the conversions. Like I said, conversions is very important because if they give you a numerical in a particular unit, you are expected to have the final answer in that particular unit. You cannot have it in just the way you want, or if they give it to you in another unit, you are expected to know by default that you have to convert it into the appropriate SI unit. So that is all for your physics part. Let's move to the chemistry. Now, in your chemistry, why do I say balanced equations and not equations? Because balanced equations is the one that your invigilator will always be looking at. It has to be always in the balanced form. You can't just write equations because, again, when it comes to your molecular mass or your weight, that will get disturbed. Next is again, when you have numericals in chemistry, you have to do the appropriate conversions that are required in SI units. You cannot just keep it in the units that is being given to you. How do you notice this change is when they in the question, when they give you two particular quantities, when they define two particular quantities, you can check the units. The units will be different, and you are expected to have them in one particular unit to be solved in a neat manner. Because if you solve it in two different units, your answers are going to vary and your final answer is going to go wrong. That's why conversions is a very important part. Make it in one unit and then your final answer has to come in that particular unit. Next is your experiments. Sometimes you are asked to support your answer with experiments or define your experiments. So you are supposed to know your MCQs are related to your experiments. Fourth is your definitions. Again, your definitions have to be very appropriate and well defined because again they carry 1 to 2 marks. Fifth is your reactions and bonding. Okay, in your reactions and bonding, you have to show your appropriate bonding, whether it's covalent or the transfer of bonds, or the reactions, how the two reactants and the products have to be well defined. Your whatever catalyst you use or temperature you use have to be well shown in your equation. This everything carries marks. And in chemistry, if your equations are right, your theory is not considered so much. They will still give you marks, but if you get your equations right, you definitely get full marks. There's no doubts about it. That's the first thing the examiner looks into is where are your equations. The third is your biology. In biology, definitions are very, very, very important because you have to be very straightforward to the content and very well defined. If your content is not defined properly, if it is not up to the question asked, you will not be able to score. That is what they look into bio. You just can't beat around the bush and get away with it. You have to be very appropriate and well defined in your content. Third is your well labeled diagrams. Like in chemistry, they look for your equations. same in bio, they will look for your well labeled diagrams. They have to be well labeled, very neat, and very well drawn. If they are not labeled, again, you will not get marks. Because diagrams is something that anybody can draw anything and come, but it has to be well labeled, well defined. Accuracy of your diagrams is very important in biology. Fourth is your detailed theory. That is what you write in your content or what diagram you give has to be well defined about, well written about. Then the examiner even gets to know that you have the proper knowledge about what you're writing and the subject is well defined to you. Now, moving to the next part is your maths. In maths, first part is your formulas. The formulas are very important. So, as soon as you get your paper, I would suggest behind your paper, write down all the formulas that you know, empty your brains out, write everything that you know, so that when you are solving a sum step by step, you know which formula to refer and just put it there and then it's all over there. So you don't have to keep thinking and wasting your time about what formulas I have to apply here or when do I have to apply here. So you write your formulas as soon as you get your answer sheets. Next is your units. Again, in maths, units are important, especially when it comes to word problems, okay, related to linear equations, all your equation problems, word problems, or compound interest chapters. All of these will be seeing your units that carries marks. Third is a systematic method of solving, like I defined. You always start with what is given to you, what you have to find, and what is your solutions. In solutions, you start with where your convergence is needed. This is your systematic method of solving. Next is stepwise evaluation. Check if you have done what is required. With that, what I mean is when your questions have 2 to 3 parts, okay, check if you have done the first part, the second part, the third part. Don't skip any part in maths because the first part will be related to the second part, the second will be third. So all will be interlinked. When you have questions part wise in maths, all the questions are in sub questions are interlinked with each other. So do not skip any sub questions. Fourth is your stepwise evaluation, like I just discussed. You do not skip any of your sub questions. Find them, solve them, they are related to each other. Fifth is your shortcuts. You can solve maths in any method. Okay, like for example, if I ask you to solve two unknown equations, you can solve it by substitution or solving it simultaneously. So you can adhere to shortcuts, okay, but make sure that your final answer is right. You can solve maths in any method. There is no particular method defined to solve maths. Sixth is your neatness. Your neatness is very, very, very important in maths. Whatever you write in your paper has to be given enough spacing, written one below the other. Normally, your answers in maths should not go sideways. You should not write your answers sideways. It has to be one below the other. Otherwise, the examiner loses interest to check your paper. It has to be very neat. Try to avoid cancellations, try to avoid overwriting, try to definitely not use a white marker. Be very neat in what you write and very appropriate in what you write in maths. In maths, neatness is the key to get marks. Now, moving on to your final evaluation, that is for your competitive exams, how would you prepare? First is you solve multiple papers, solve your last year 5 papers, 10 papers, keep on solving maximum papers because the chance of repetitions or a sequence that you find out in this question papers, you will also find that particular thing in your competitive exam. Okay. Second is your online test. Keep taking online tests, which is very important to evaluate yourself. So please keep taking online tests. Okay. You will also know that where you stand, you can map your growth. Third is underline the keywords in theory answers, especially in when you define something. Right now, your teachers don't use the entire answer. Sometimes they look for keywords. So just keep underlining them. When they see the keywords, they have an idea that you know the content, you have the knowledge of the subject. Fourth is underline the final answer twice in maths. Why? In the end, when you underline the final answer twice, it's very easy for your examiner to just see your final answer and give you marks rather than going through your steps. So when they see your final Fifth is draw flowcharts and block diagrams. Wherever you need to explain your answer in forms of diagrammatic representation of flowcharts, draw neat flowcharts. Show the cycle of work. Show your block diagrams, how they are related to each other. Sixth is your self assessment. Map your growth from where you have started to where you have landed up. Monitor yourself to how much improvement you have done in your test, to where you are lacking, which topics you are lacking. The next point is no new last minute experiments. That is, whatever you have done or whatever you have skipped, okay, just let it be. Whatever you have done in the last minute, you have to thoroughly do it. There is no chance for you to lose marks there whatsoever. Do not try to do new topics if you're not sure it about in the last minute. Just stick to what you have done very well. Okay, so these are all the key points that you need to remember when you appear for a competitive exam or for your board exams.